Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is November 6, 2025, and we have an injury update in regards to Eddie Garcia and Coutinho. Also, Hansi Flick doubling down and insisting that he will not be changing his system. And finally, Thierry Henry hitting back at Hansi Flick with some harsh words in the aftermath of Barcelona's draw against Club Brugge. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Bo. We'll begin this video with the news that it's been confirmed that Eddie Garcia suffered a nose fracture during yesterday's draw against Club Brugge in the Champions League. Now, Eddie Garcia was subbed out towards the end of the match as he was seen bleeding from his nose. He was taken to the hospital where he underwent x-rays, and well, the x-rays revealed that he has suffered a fractured nose, and Eddie Garcia was also seen hopping on the plane back to Barcelona with a mask. I'm sure you've seen those masks that players use when they have a fractured nose. So Eddie Garcia with a broken nose, putting his nose on the line for the team. No, I'm not talking about cocaine. I'm talking about his actual nose being on the line as he has fractured. Now, there is a possibility that Eddie Garcia most likely will not start against Celta Vigo during this weekend. But of course, right after that is the FIFA international break. So he will have plenty of time to heal. So I wish Eddie Garcia a speedy recovery. Now, speaking of injuries, we move on to the next bit of news. And this is great news because, ladies and gentlemen, Coutinho is on road to recovery. He will not be included in this weekend's match against Celta Vigo. However, the Barcelona doctors have penciled him in for the first match after the FIFA international break, which will be on November 22nd against Athletic Club de Bilbao. And that's, of course, great news because I don't know about you, but I sure as hell missed Coutinho on the pitch. Now, speaking of Athletic Club de Bilbao, check out how pathetic their fans are because yesterday Athletic Club de Bilbao were losing at the hands of Newcastle in the Champions League. They ended up losing 2-0. And every time Club Brugge scored a goal against Barcelona, the Athletic Club de Bilbao fans at Newcastle stadiums were heard celebrating. So they're there to support their team that was losing, and yet they were celebrating goals against Barcelona. Wow. Talk about pathetic fans. Now, let's not forget that the Club de Bilbao have only won 1 out of 4 matches in the Champions League. They were even thrashed at the hands of Dortmund 4-1. They're currently sitting 27th in the Champions League. In other words, they're currently out of the next phase. They're sitting 11th in La Liga. Total embarrassing performance so far, but they're more concerned about what Barcelona's doing rather than their own team. This reminds me of the Espanyol fans that were chanting against Joan Garcia in their match against Elche. I guess now these two clubs have one thing in common, and that is that they have pathetic fans. All right, on to the next bit of news because, ladies and gentlemen, Hansi Flick has doubled down during a post-match press conference after yesterday's draw where he was asked multiple times, are you considering changing the system? And this is what Flick had to say. We are Barca and we want to play our football. We can talk about changing everything, but I'm not that kind of coach. We will play according to our DNA. Pay attention to this because we're going to talk about it. We won't defend in our own half and will play on the counterattack to win 1-0. The midfield didn't press enough. We lost possession too often, and it wasn't easy for the defensive line to defend against the quick attacks. When there's no intensity, you have no chance in the Champions League. Now, Flick was again asked if he would change his system, and again he doubled down, saying, I'm not going to repeat it. The way forward is not to change. We are Barca. Our football is about being active and having intensity with and without the ball. We have to work on this. And when everyone comes back from injury, we'll see how it goes. So Flick saying, I'm not changing because we want to play according to our DNA, which is playing offensive football, pragmatic football, entertaining football. Football that's, well, risky because when you attack with the entire team, you are going to open yourself to conceding goals. And that's how always Barcelona has played. And people are always like, oh, Barca DNA this, Barca DNA that. But yet, they are quick to hop off the boat as soon as we can see one goal, which tells me one of two things. You either don't know what Barca DNA is, or two, Barca DNA is not actually your thing. You think it is, but it's not. Because as Johan Cruyff always used to say, I'd rather win 5-4 than win 1-0. And what does that mean? That means, well, playing the way we have always played. Entertaining, pragmatic, offensive football. That, yes, it opens you up to conceding goals, But as long as you score more, at the end of the day, you win. And that's the point, because not conceding goals is irrelevant if you score more than your opponent. We won 3-2 against Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. We conceded 2 goals. But nobody cared because at the end of the day, we scored more than them. We won, and we took the trophy home. We won 4-3 against Real Madrid in the second El Clasico match, which pretty much sealed the La Liga win for us, or La Liga title for us. And that was 3 goals that we conceded. As many goals as we conceded yesterday. But nobody seemed to bat an eye because at the end of the day, we scored more. And we took the 3 points and we took La Liga title. So it's not about not conceding goals. It's about scoring more than what you concede. That's the Barca DNA. And if that's not your cup of tea, if conceding goals makes you squirm, then maybe Barca is not your team. Maybe you should watch a different team. Maybe Real Madrid. They like to sit back and defend. You know, complaining about Barcelona scoring goals while saying you love the Barca DNA is like watching Atletico Madrid and complaining about parking the bus. And maybe you shouldn't be watching Atletico Madrid because maybe parking the bus is not your cup of tea. So Hansi Flick insisting that we're going to play by our DNA. And I support that because this is why I watch Barca. Because I want to see entertaining football. I want to see offensive, pragmatic football. I want to be entertained. I don't want to watch 2 teams sitting back, letting the other team have the ball and just hoping to counterattack and score 1 goal and seal the deal with a 1-0. If I wanted that, I would watch another team. I want to be entertained because after all, this is football and football is entertainment. If conceding goals does not entertain you because it makes you squirm, then maybe this is not your team. Now, Thierry Henry did have a message to Hansi Flick after Barcelona drew against Club Brugge, where he criticized Flick's system, saying the following. We all know what happened against Benfica and Inter. The number of goals conceded is excessive. Most of those goals were very easy for the opposition. They have to fix that as soon as possible because it's impossible for them to win in Europe that way. I already said it after Barca's victory against Bayern last year. They won 4-1, but it was a very suspicious result. Kane only had to drop back to break through the defense and score at will. And they had many more chances. Teams know what they have to do and create a lot of problems for the defenders. The number of challenges that goalkeepers have to stop or concede is not normal. A year later, it's still the same. And that makes it very difficult for a team like Barca with all the talent it has to compete. Why do you have always to expose yourself to this situation? Why do you always want to suffer? They can always score against you, and that weighs on the players. So Thierry Henry saying, you can't go in Europe playing like this, taking a lot of risk because it's impossible to win. And I love Thierry Henry. He's one of my favorite players. He's an absolute legend, but unfortunately, this time, I do have to disagree with him because Thierry Henry says you can't go around playing Europe taking a lot of risk like this. But yes, you can because we did it last season and we made it all the way to the semifinals of the Champions League with that system. PSG won the Champions League last season with a very similar system. Very offensive, taking a lot of risk. Bayern Munich won yesterday against PSG with a similar system. Hansi Flick won the Champions League with Bayern Munich with the same system. Pep Guardiola won the Champions League several times with a very similar system. Highly offensive, pragmatic football, taking a lot of risk. So to say that you can't go in Europe playing like this because it's impossible to win is factually wrong. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of fact. Because how many teams and how many coaches have actually won the Champions League playing this kind of system? Now, let's look at the other side of the spectrum. Take Inter Milan, for example. They're a team that doesn't take any risk. They defend really well. They don't take any risks. Last season, they had the best defense in Europe. And guess what? They lost the Champions League final to this system at the hands of PSG. Atletico de Madrid, they don't take any risks. They defend in their own half. They park the bus. And how many Champions League do they have? So it's not about the system. It's about how do you execute it. What you should say is that you can't go playing in Europe with any system if you're not going to execute it properly. Because there is no perfect system in football. Every system, whether highly offensive, highly defensive, somewhere in the middle, every system has its strength and every system has its weakness. If there was a perfect system, all the coaches would play it and every team would play the same, but there isn't. So it's just a matter of picking which system you prefer and then applying it correctly. Because if you don't apply the system correctly, whatever it is, it's not going to work. If you park the bus and you don't defend well, you're going to concede goals. Does that mean that parking the bus doesn't work? No, it means you didn't apply it correctly. If you park the bus, you defend well, but you don't know how to counterattack, you might not concede goals, but you're also not going to score goals and you're not going to win that way. Does that mean parking the bus doesn't work? No, it means you didn't apply it correctly. So it's not about the system, it's how you execute it. And if you don't execute the system correctly, it's not going to work regardless of what system it is. Now, I know what people are going to say. Mo, who the hell are you? We're talking about Thierry Henry. And you're right. I'm nobody. I'm just a random guy on YouTube. But here's the thing. Let me revert back to something I used to say when I used to criticize Xabi. I used to always say, separate the player from the coach. Xabi Hernandez, as a player, one of the greatest midfielders in the history of football, not of Barca, of football. As a coach, average at best. Thierry Henry, as a player, one of the greatest attackers in the history of the sport. But as a coach, well, he didn't win anything. He failed. He got sacked, and now he's not even coaching because, well, he was so bad at it. So don't listen to me. Instead, look at the counter arguments. On one hand, we have a coach, Hansi Flick, who's won a sextuple with Bayern, one of only 2 coaches in the history to achieve that, has won 3 trophies with Barcelona in his first season. And on the other hand, we have Thierry Henry, the coach, who's never won anything. So who am I going to listen to? This is kind of like saying, you know what? I want to be wealthy. I want to learn how to manage my money, how to invest it, how to grow it, how to build wealth. And 2 guys come up to you giving you financial advice. One of them is wealthy. Wasn't born into wealth, middle class, worked hard, saved his money, invested it, grew it, built wealth, and now is successful, has companies, has financial freedom. The other guy is broke. Who are you going to listen to for financial advice? The guy who has a proven track record or the guy who's broke? I think the answer is pretty clear. So this is not a video to attack Thierry Henry. This is just a video asking you, look at the facts, look at the history, look at the data. On one hand, we have a system that has won the Champions League multiple times and a coach that has succeeded with that system. On the other hand, we have a failed coach who's telling you that a system that has won the Champions League cannot win the Champions League. You pick. Don't listen to me. Listen to the facts. Anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, peace, Barca.